Have you ever walked out of a meeting where everyone agreed with you, nodded along, supported the direction, and yet something didn't just sit right? You couldn't quite put your finger on it, but it felt like the conversation never really got where it needed to go. Well, here's the reality. At senior level, agreement is often not alignment, it's compliance. And the more senior you become, the more dangerous that becomes because what looks like a smooth meeting, what feels like momentum, can actually be a complete absence of challenge. And without challenge, your thinking doesn't sharpen, it narrows. Now, in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how to spot what I call the invisible authority gap. It's that moment where your presence in the room becomes so strong that it unintentionally suppresses the very thing that you need from the people around you. We'll break it down. Firstly, how to audit where this is happening for you, how to identify where your real influence should sit. Then I'll give you one precise move that you can use this week to reopen up challenge in any room that you walk into. Hi, if you're new here, my name's Penny Wood, and I work with senior leaders who are no longer trying to earn their seat at the table, but are ready to actually shape what happens at it. Now, if that's you, please hit subscribe because this channel is about making the moves that actually shift your impact as a leader. Now, let's get into our topic today. Let's start with phase one, which I call the audit phase, because this is where most leaders misread the situation completely. At senior level, feedback doesn't disappear, it becomes filtered. You stop hearing, well, I disagree, I think that's the wrong direction. And instead you hear, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, happy to go with that. Yep, sounds good. And on the surface, that feels like progress. But here's what's actually happening underneath it. The people around you are running a calculation in real time in their minds. They're thinking things like, well, how strong is this leader's point of view? How open are they to challenge? What's the risk of pushing back here? Should I do it or should I not? And if that perceived cost of challenging you is too high, even subtly, they default back to agreement. Now, this is not because they agree, but it's because it's safer. Now, here's where it becomes a real problem for you because the more credible you are, the more experienced you are, the more consistently you've been right, the more that effect multiplies. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, what you're doing without meaning to is you're training the room to stop stretching your thinking. And I see this constantly with high performing executives. You've built your reputation on being sharp, decisive, reliable, right? But over time, that strength creates a side effect. People stop testing your thinking and they just start accepting it. And when that happens, your leadership environment becomes quieter, not stronger. So here's the question I want you to sit with. Where are you getting easy agreement right now that should actually feel uncomfortable? Because that's your first signal. Now, once you've seen that happen, we need to shift how you think about influence because this is where most leaders stay stuck. At a senior level, your job is not to be the smartest person in the room, it's to create the smartest room possible. Just think about that for a moment. But many leaders, especially those who've come up through high performance, are still operating as a source for the answers. You're the one people look to. You're the one who sets the direction. You're the one who closes the conversation. And that feels like leadership, right? But here's the shift. Real influence at this level doesn't come from having the answer. It comes from shaping the thinking that leads to the answer. That's a completely different role. You move from I need to be right to I need the room to think better. And that means your leverage point changes. Instead of asking, what do I think about this? You start asking things like, what thinking is missing here? Now, let's make this practical for you. Think about your next meeting. Where did the conversation stay at surface level? Where did people agree too quickly? Where did no one push further? That's exactly where your influence should have been applied. Not by giving a stronger answer, but by opening with a better question, because that's where strategic leadership actually lives. Now, the final phase of the master move method is called execute. We've got to make this actionable because insight without execution doesn't change anything, right? So, in the next 72 hours, I want you to apply this. Pick one high stakes interaction that you've got to have. It could be a leadership meeting, a group discussion, a strategy session, right? And instead of preparing your answer or your solution, prepare your question. A question that introduces a little bit of tension. It could be something like, what are we not seeing here? Or where could this fail? And are we ignoring it? Or what would someone outside the room challenge in this situation? Now, here's the part that most leaders get wrong. You ask the question and then you jump back into it too quickly. You clarify, you soften it, you answer it yourself. Please don't do that. What I want you to do is ask the question and then stop. Let the silence stretch out. Because that silence is where the shift happens. That's where people realize, this isn't a room for passive agreement anymore. It's a room where real thinking is required. And when that happens, two things change. Number one, immediately the quality of the contribution of others increases. They bring more ideas, they bring different solutions because they feel more confident to contribute. And number two, your authority deepens, not because you spoke more, but because you created more options and more opportunity for the solution. That's the move. It's simple, precise, and it's got high impact. So here's the takeaway. The next level of your leadership isn't about being more certain. It's about creating better thinking around you, because the leaders who truly shape outcomes aren't the ones with the answers. They're the ones who change how the room thinks. Now, if this has landed for you, if you're recognizing that gap between being respected and actually influencing outcomes, then this is exactly the work I do with senior leaders. I've put together a short executive briefing called the Master Move Executive Summary. It walks you through the full framework, how to audit where you are, how to identify the move that will shift your position, and how to execute it in a way that actually sticks. It'll give you a much clearer picture of where your next level sits. Now, you'll find the link for that in the description below. And if you're at the point where you're thinking, well, I can see this, but I need to move now, well, there's also a link below to book a strategy call with me. That's where we take your specific situation and we identify what your master move actually is. Now, if this video sparks something for you, I'd love it if you could do a couple of things for me. Firstly, please like the video because that tells me it's the kind of content that's useful for you. Secondly, share it with another leader who you know is operating at a high level because maybe they're not getting the level of challenge that they need around them either. And then finally, please hit the subscribe button so that I know that you want more content like this. Because this channel is about one thing. It's about helping you make the moves that actually change your trajectory in your leadership and your career. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.